Hey, hello.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm always doing good. Good. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Today's a good day. It's a new day.
Good.
It's a good day. You know what I wanted to say to you though is that I completely forgot. I started going on about cheer last week,
Yeah,
and you said like if you had a daughter, you wouldn't want her to do cheer. Do you know that they can have full ride scholarships with cheer?
I had no idea.
Yeah. So like, don't knock the cheer. The
That wasn't it
cheerleaders.
wasn't exactly my point that I'm against cheerleaders. My point was I didn't want my
You
daughter to
said
spend her
otherwise.
life cheering on someone else's accomplishments. And I said, unless it's the gymnastics part, I understand it. But to just stand there on the sideline where, Katie, how do you feel? I feel good. And they do that whole thing. And I don't know, just wasn't my again, I don't have daughters, so I probably shouldn't speak up.
Well, you know what? You say that, but usually the cheerleaders love their team that they're
Yeah.
cheering for and they support them, whether they're good or bad. And they're there to like do their thing and support
Yeah.
their players. So let's support the cheerleaders. And the other thing is the movie that I couldn't figure out the name is Babylon.
Yes.
Babylon with Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt. That's what I'm saying that I love her in so much. And I also wanted to thank everybody that reached out. So many people reached out to me after I told the story about Dylan and what happened to her. So I just got so many heartfelt, wonderful wishes and stuff. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm super grateful for that. And another thing, if you got a friend request and somebody was inboxing you from my account, well, it was a fake my account. They took all my pictures. They copied everything, the bio, everything. They were asking people for $3,000 for an
Wow.
autograph picture. I was like, and
Wow.
it started with my daughter in the morning. She's like, look at this account. I just reported it. And then all day, everybody, my friends were, who is this? Who is this? And I was like, oh, goodness. So I think they're gone. I hope they're gone. People are crazy, and that's scary. That's like, and are they kidding? And why would you tell my daughter? Why would you
Yeah.
friend my daughter? And I don't know if they're unaware, but my autograph is not worth $3,000. So sorry, sucker, you missed the mark.
You know what's interesting about that is, the blue check mark, the whole deal where Elon took all the blue check marks away. And then they want you to pay, I don't know, what is it, $8 a month or something for it. And at first I was like, well, I'm not going to pay for anything. I know who I am. But then for me, even Nicole, I had people create a couple fake accounts, and I said, well, I got to pay for my identity. I mean, if I'm going to be on this platform, I want people to know it's me, because what was written was brutal, and I'm involved in high school sports and kids, and I didn't want people to think that was me. And it was freaking me out a little bit. So I went and I did pay for that check mark. I was just
Did it?
couldn't
And you
take a
paid
chance.
monthly for it?
Yeah. I think I just paid for the year. It was like $80 or something. Still, I felt like I was paying for my own identity just to keep my name clear for the kids that I coach in the school district that I'm with.
Well, if you think that helps, I get it. I'm not paying for shit on there,
Yeah.
and I don't even like, I don't even log on there anymore now that it's X instead of Twitter. Like
Yeah.
he added insult to injury, and I don't think anybody really cares about that website anymore. So, or that social media site anymore. So who cares? Like blah.
Do you have a
But
favorite? Do you have a favorite social media site?
I guess Instagram because
Me
it's
too.
fun. Yeah, I like it. It's fun. You get to catch up with people quickly. I do like Facebook too. I know a lot of people think it's corny, but I like it because I really can like you instead of Instagram where it's pictures and stuff like that, you get to actually see what people are doing in their day on Facebook or keep up with like their lives. And so I use it more as like keeping up with people I care about.
Exactly.
And that's about it. So but we've got an amazing guest today.
Yes.
Like those people who they're positive people because they'll say something and they'll speak it into existence and it happens. Like they're not just talkers.
Yep.
And I watch again. Yeah, I'm not a stalker, but I do watch on social media. And he's just one of those people, and it just makes me happy. And I talk about this, but I just get happy when I see people doing great things and great things happening to good people.
Me
So
too.
let's not delay it anymore. Most of you will probably know him from House of Pain. But the one, the only, Danny Boy.
Good to see you guys.
Huh?
I didn't recognize you without the blue check, but I guess it's you.
Listen, you know what my daughter said is she goes, you know what's funny is that if all the celebrities were to hold out and not pay for it, then you would know that the ones without the check were the real people. And because everybody, Joe Schmo, buys this check mark because they just feel validated or something, whatever. But
I think
all hold out.
You know, I'm on it more than I'd like to admit on all of the platforms, but I feel like I'd be truly rich when I wasn't on them. And I mean rich in the sense of time rich and serenity rich. It's a necessary tool if you are, you know, branding and promoting and all of that good stuff. It's a fantastic tool, but there's a lot of static and noise and stuff, and it's easy to get sucked into, and it gives and it takes. But someday I'd like to be able to be like, you're like, I love all your posts. I'm like, oh, what were those posts? I hired someone else to do that for me. I'm over here at the lake. They must be doing their job. But because it's such a time suck, you know, it's just like at the end, it's like eating dessert every meal. There's not a lot of nutritional value long term.
You know what?
For what it's worth.
You're right. You're 100% right. And I said to Dave when we started doing this podcast, I said, I now know why there are social media managers. Like, that's a job. And I get it now. And the other thing that's so annoying, and I don't know if they do this on purpose or what, but like you can cross all your posts together, right? So like if you post on Facebook, it can upload to Instagram, but then like your apps don't transfer over. And like, why can't you just post once and it go to everything? Like, why do we have to keep copying and pasting and then I have to go back through and redo the apps? And then not all of them, like when I do it from the Nicole Eggert page, it won't app people. Like it won't, I don't know. They should make this easier. They take all our information. They have our whole lives. They have everything. They know all our financials. They know everything. They should make this a little easier, right?
Well, yeah. I know you said you work with kids, so I'll have to watch but somebody, I saw somebody post something, which was, if you could imagine, and maybe you know in firsthand, you don't have to, no pun intended. In the 80s, there used to be a channel, it was Channel 99, and it was scrambled. But if you looked hard enough, you could see what it was. It was actually, and somebody made a puzzle of it too, which is completely random. Anyway, I'm looking at it on my desktop and I'm thinking about how like nothing's easy, but if you focus long enough, it'll all start to make sense. And sometimes the opposite is true. It's just disconnecting is probably going to make the most sense. So as a tool, I think that what we're doing right now is an incredible technology. It's literally the stuff we used to see on cartoons and the Jetsons and whatnot, where the TV pops up and we're both talking to each other. The three of us are in completely different locations, yet we're live. And so I do love the upside of it, but like anything else, it gives and it takes. But glad to meet you, Dave. Nicole, great to see you. I'm going to
you know what I was thinking? The last time I think I actually saw you in person, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you don't even remember, but I think we were at Leor's and you guys were doing recording La Coca Nostra.
Yeah, that was a while ago. You know, it's funny because it seems like just yesterday sometimes, and then I go, like the 90s seem like just yesterday, and then I have to be careful because we're in 2023, and I'm like what? It's a gift and a blessing to be here, but I swear it was all a dream. I look back at just so many things of just like again, that's why I keep going back to it. The internet is great, but it also, because I see your Facebook, I feel like I still see you all the time, but the truth is I don't. And there's some serious benefits to that, but there's also some like it's empty long term because you feel like I always see that person, but you really don't. So there's a void, I'm sure, in all of us that is like, it's not really getting properly. There's nothing better than sitting across from somebody getting a cup of coffee than there is. And again, then there's sometimes I'd rather forego the coffee, just hit me with the text. So again, it's
it's a mood. It's whatever mood you're in, right? At least for me.
No, of course. Again, and this is the balance, best finding that balance and is I guess what we're all after, and you said something about being positive all the time and speaking it into existence. It wasn't always that way. I was a pessimist growing up. I was very angry growing up. I was very I thought the deck was stacked against me. I was told so, you know, growing up, and I always knew that I was going to, you know, eventually be an addict or an alcoholic, just like my father. So I had a different energy growing up. I had to turn the corner and really, like, you know, nearly die to be grateful for life itself. And it's been a long journey, and I'm not trying to, you know, toot my own horn or anything like that, but I just, again, it's with all of the things that life throws at us, it's worth every second. And so I'm always glad to be participating in my own life and still be here doing it, because I know there's a lot of people that me and you know, Nicole, and I'm sure Dave as well, who would give anything for our worst day just to be back to experience that. So I always start the day with gratitude, but I wasn't born with that. I didn't learn that at home. I had to develop that, and I had to practice it and really buy into that whole concept. And it's amazing what happens with a different mindset and different results. And so,
but that's why it's cool when you do it. If you're born that way and like you just grow up that way, I mean, that's boring and probably kind of annoying. Honestly, it's the people. It's the people that had to find it, had to discover it. You know what I mean? That's what makes it interesting.
No,
otherwise,
listen. To that point, you know, you know, I don't know that Dave knows, and maybe House of Pain fans may know, but they also may not know. And I'm coming to you live from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'd love to tell you about why I'm here and how I found all of this stuff. And it really ties into the gratitude thing and you know, being humble and asking for help. But after La Coca Nostra, which is a side band that we did, which was all of House of Pain, happened that way by accident, but it didn't turn out, it wasn't supposed to be that way, but that's a whole other story. So we ended up putting a super group together in like 2005 or 6. We ended up going on tour in 2009. And in 2009, I came to Tulsa, Oklahoma with La Coca Nostra and realized that this place had felt very familiar to me. But I know that I had never been here before. So we were here for 3 days. And day one, I go, wow, this place feels super familiar. And day two, we hired a cab, which this is again 2009, if you can believe it. There was no Uber or Lyft, at least in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we had to wait for car service to come get us. The guy came and picked us up after an hour. He had a cigarette in his mouth and a soccer van. And we were like, what? And we said, can you take us around and show us your beautiful city? He said, well, the only thing that comes to mind is the Rose Garden or the Woodland Hills Mall. And I was like, what? I'm like, wrong band. But so we were at the mall, we were, you know, doing nothing. And we went to Whataburger, which was great. But on the way from Whataburger back to the hotel, it occurred to me that my favorite book and movie, The Outsiders, was filmed and written in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that epiphany changed my life. That day I went back to the hotel, grabbed my laptop, was able to go online. There was very little information about locations as we, you know, today there's tons of information, all your favorite movie, TV, true crime locations. And I'd like to think I played a small part in that. But at the time, what I was able to glean from the internet was where the drive-in from The Outsiders, the movie, was, where the movie theater from The Outsiders was, and where the park was. And then I saw somebody had a Flickr account, and they had an actual photo of The Outsiders house from the movie. And they said, if you're able to find the park, you can find the house. But they wouldn't give up the address because it was a residential address, which was fair play. And so I got that same driver. I gave him $100. I said, take me all around this thing. I want to go looking for Outsiders locations. And sure enough, we hit all three. And by finding the park, I found the house. And I took a photo out front of that house that day. And then we played the Cain's Ballroom. And Cain's Ballroom is similar to like the CBGBs of the Midwest. It's almost 100 years old. Anybody who has played this place, or like the Roxy, or like any of the, you know, Sunset strip clubs. But in 78, the Sex Pistols played their second to last show, and Sid Vicious allegedly punched a hole in the green room on their way out, and they've cut that hole out and framed it. So I put both of those photos of one of the Sid Vicious Sex Pistols hole in Cain's Ballroom, and then two of me standing out front of the Outsiders house. And in 2009, you can trust me on this. If you go back in the memories and you look at your 2009 feed, you could post that you're giving out free $100 bills all day long, and you'll get like 2 or 3 likes on that. At least I did. And I'm not saying, you know, people were scared to like anything. They didn't know what that implied. We were kind of like just window shopping at that point, not sure what to like, not looking thirsty. but I posted the picture of me in front of that outsider's house, and people went bonkers, and people were hitting me up from Warner Brothers being like, we didn't know that's on our lot. Where on the lot is it? I'm like, it's in Tulsa. People didn't understand what Tulsa was, where Tulsa was. And at that moment, I realized I was onto something. And I continued to use that tour bus kind of like a time machine. And every town we went, I would start to look up, pop culture, historical, movie, true crime, album cover locations. And I started to go and take photos of what's there now, take screen grabs of what was there, put it together and put it on the internet, and started a whole crew of urban explorers in 2009 called the Delta Bravo Urban Exploration Team, which you can see online. And that is really what ended up getting me excited about the Outsider's house. When I first found it, it wasn't for sale. It was for sale for 42 grand, which I thought, I cannot believe, one, the house is here, two, that it's for sale, and three, that any house on earth is cheap as 42 grand. But I had to be careful, and I did not buy it upon first look. But for the next 5 years, I started driving back and forth from LA, either on tour or on a lot of road trips doing this urban exploration. Until year 5, I realized that if somebody doesn't buy this house, that it was going to fall apart. And I ended up started digging for the owner's information. Very hard to find, even with the help of the internet and being the good sleuth that I am. I eventually had to just get somebody to go up to the door and ask for the owner's information, which they were hesitant to give up. It took about 3 asks, but we finally got a hold of them. And I ended up buying the house in 2016 for a whopping $15,000. And
wow,
completely changed my life.
Oh my God.
So, and I don't want to, if you feel free to stop me at any time, or if you have any questions, but I don't want to just route for an hour, because I can unpack this thing for a long time, or I can do it short. But I guess we're
people still living in the house?
There were, I believe there was like a family and a half living there. They were tearing it to shreds. They were, I think one person had a job, and there was about 8 other people just hanging on over there. It was kind of like a trap house, and a little bit of it was in bad shape. Now, people are shocked that I paid 15 grand for it. I was shocked that I could get it for 15 grand. When I got to the actual house, I bought it sight unseen. I had been out front of it a few times. Every year I'd come back and take photos. But when I bought it, I really had never seen the inside. And when I finally got to Tulsa, I drove all the way from LA to Tulsa once again, and finally got in the house. I had to actually pay them $5,000 to relocate them. They were 8 months behind in rent, and they were just hoping that they never had to pay rent again. But after all of that, I broke into my own house. Needless to say, they left me all kinds of door prizes, and it was in terrible shape. And I literally was in tears that day, because I thought, this is the stupidest thing. And I've done a lot of stupid things, but this was up there, because at the time I know what I had in the bank, and it wasn't much. I had 28 grand, and I was already 20 into this house with $8,000 left in my account. And no work in front of me. Like we were touring and doing that, but it just wasn't, touring isn't what it used to be. It costs as much sometimes to go out as what you come back with. If you come back with 4 or 5 grand, so be it. It's not bad for 30 days hanging out with your boys, but that is no way to like make a proper living. And it was cool. We made more an accident in the 90s than we ever made it on purpose in the 2000s. At least I could speak for myself in that way. And so it was scary stuff. I was rolling the dice on this thing, and I had no plan. And no, my only plan was to make sure that nobody tore it down. And the first week I was there, a gentleman pulled up to the house, and he said, "Hey, which one of you is the new owners?" And I said, "That would be me." I go, "Well, how can I help you?" And he goes, "You come up out of nowhere and basically stole this house from out under me." And I said, "What do you mean I stole the house?" He goes, "Yeah, well, this was on my short list. I tear them down for the Habitat for Humanities, and we put new homes here." And I said, "With all due respect, sir, there's this whole neighborhood is filled with places you can put 2 Habitat houses." And that was really what my fear was, that they were going to come tear this house down. And I was right. And I said, "Don't you know that this is the outsider's house?" And I'll never forget. And he said, "Insider, outsider, I don't care what sider. I could have put 2 houses." And at that point, I told him where he could put 2 more houses, and he didn't like that either. But all that to say, Dave and Nicole, I was terrified. I was out of money. I wanted to turn it into a museum. because I thought, well, there's a Christmas Story house that was saved, and there's the Field of Dreams that was saved. I knew that there was proof and concept that this was a real, possibility, but I had no money. And I assure you, for all you listeners at home, I am a 6'6" alpha male. But when it comes to fixing or working on anything, I'll leave that to the people who know best. And I just assume pay for someone else to do that for me. But I had no money to do any of that stuff, so I had to ask for help. And it is the greatest of all life lessons, because growing up, being in my mind, or real or perceived, a tough guy, I thought it was weak to ask for help. And I almost died many times being too proud and let my ego get in the way in asking for help. But this time was different, and I cared so much about this house, and I wanted to see this thing get turned into what I knew it could be, which was an incredible museum, that I humbled myself and asked for help. And that might sound like nothing to people who don't have that same problem that I do, low self-esteem, egomaniac combined. But in asking for help, the greatest thing in the world happened to me is that people actually showed up and helped. And, I think between me being humble and asking, and the spirit of the Midwest, which is a little bit, it's a lot different than LA and New York. And I was born in Brooklyn and raised in LA. I went back every summer until I was about 13, till I seen The Outsiders. I wanted to be Dallas Winston so bad, the Matt Dillon character, that it hurt. And I think after seeing The Outsiders, I didn't want to go anywhere but, ride around on my bike pretending I was him. But all that to say that I do talk to kids as well all the time. As you can imagine, I get invited to do all the schools because the author, Essie Hinton, who wrote this book, she's still here, but she's just not, she doesn't have it in her to go out and do it. She's been doing it for years. And when I talk to the kids, I tell them the same stuff. I say, you know what? A good education, a source of funding, and a well-laid plan is the best way to get most of these things done. But sometimes you won't have the money, you won't have a good, a proper plan laid out at the moment, but the opportunity, shows up. If you see your shot and you're passionate about it, take your shot, because you know what? The worst thing that comes out is it's a lesson, a life lesson. And the best thing is you end up turning it into something that has been, transformative for all of us. So
a couple of things. One is the book was always required reading, so everybody had read that book. When the movie came out, I think everybody was amazed at the casting, just like everybody just hit a home run of just being a tremendous star. And so for me, there are a couple connections, Danny. Is one is I coached baseball at a high school where our colors are navy, blue, and gold. And the saying always in the school, and you see it all over it, it's painted on the walls, is "Stay gold." And it's obviously, from the movie and from the book. And so, the excitement of The Outsiders is one of those that goes back to my childhood, goes to Nicole's childhood, goes to your childhood. What was the connection for you that said, this is something that's in my heart?
Well, it's a great question. And you said everybody, it was required reading in 7th grade, which true. And you said everybody read it, and that's false, because I didn't read it. And I went at 13.
I was a cheater, but I watched the movie.
Same. And so I went to the movie with my friend Steve Sokolsky, who he looked like a mini George Michael in 7th grade. He was the most athletic, and he was a straight A student. And he just was like the perfect child. And he invited me that summer. We ran into each other. We were riding BMX bikes, and for whatever reason, we were always cool, but we were never tight. And that summer, we just kind of like tightened up. And he invited me to go see it. We saw it. I had no idea what I was going to see. I didn't read the book. So we went and seen it. And immediately the feelings that I felt inside about my life and being in the shoes that I was in was being portrayed in a different era on the screen. And it doesn't sound like, I don't know what it sounds like. Growing up, my father went to prison when I was 2 months old. My mother married another alcoholic addict. He ended up coming to California with us and died at 35 of cirrhosis. So that's how hard he was drinking. My mother didn't want kids in the first place and always told us so, or at least told me so. And then there was a culture shock. I mean, there was no internet. There was no cell phones. There wasn't even MTV when I moved to California. So they were calling me Disco Dan when I first came here. Or there. I'm in Tulsa now. But in my mind, and that was fighting words. Like the status quo would be like a rock guy with long hair and being a hesher. And I looked that way, but I was in the roller skating rinks. My mother had an amazing Motown record collection. And You know, so I was always like R&B and soul in my mind. And in the 70s, that was problematic. They were, you know, asking me to say quarter and water and all of that stuff. And it wasn't terrible. I wasn't like bullied or, you know, that bad or mushed around, but I definitely felt the culture shock. And then every summer, because I was a handful, my mother would send me back to New York and New Jersey for the summer. So I feel like I grew up on both coasts, and I always identified as a New Yorker, even in LA, even in hip hop. That was my draw to hip hop. It was like a connection to the land that I had been like unfairly stripped from and brought to California. And don't get me wrong, I love California as well, but I really always in my heart, and still to this day, will consider myself a New Yorker, as crazy as that is, and whatever, for many reasons. So when I saw The Outsiders, I felt like they felt, which a lot of kids feel this way. This is why the book and the movie is so powerful, is that they feel disconnected when you don't have the family unit at home that you maybe wanted or hoped for. What do? You go out and create that somewhere else. Now, kids with guidance, and this is great that you coach baseball because it's my favorite sport as well. And kids with guidance, they put their kids in sports. They put their kids in those things, and the lessons that you can learn just from baseball alone. You know, if you hit a home run, you don't flip the bat. You do it gracefully, and you run the bases, and you touch every base, and you don't grandstand. If you lose, it's just a way to learn how to, you know, you learn these life lessons. I didn't learn any of that. I had to go out learn it on the streets, because when you don't have the guidance, you go find other kids that are just like me. We gravitate towards gangs and crews and all of the other stuff. And really, originally, that was the appeal for me for hip hop. You know, I was always a music head, but I wasn't an isolationist, so I wasn't going to spend 9 hours a day and learning my arpeggios and you know, harmonic chords on a guitar in my bedroom by myself. I was already out in the streets with my boombox trying to find other dudes to break dance and rap with and whatever. And so, you know, the long answer is that I saw hope in that if I don't like what's going on inside, I can go find it outside, and I did just that. Now, the book didn't come for years later. As soon as I started to really think seriously about buying this house or possibly finding a way to buy this house, I thought now would be a good time to read this book, because I've been telling everybody, like my buddy's been telling me, the book is so much better. Because when we came out of that movie in '83, and I remember it like it's yesterday, that it was just like, we saw it at the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. And my buddy said, "What do you think?" And I said, "It was tremendous." And I said, "You?" And he goes, "Man, it was good, but the book is so much better. What happened to this scene and what happened to that scene?" And I was like, he's crazy. And I remember thinking, like, we're in 7th grade. Why are you reading? Like, it didn't even make sense. Like, you could see the movie. Why would I want to read the fucker, you know? But it was that. And I liked it so much. This is crazy. I begged my mother to come see that with me the following week. We have always been I felt we had just never been, we just never had a good relationship. It wasn't that it was terrible. It was just like two strangers. It really was. And, but she had always, you know, give me, when she was in a good mood, or maybe she had a beer or two, she would brag about my father and being a tough guy and this, that, and the third. So I thought, well, she will love this movie because it's these guys, it's these Dallas Winston characters. And she was like, when we got out, I said, "What'd you think? What'd you think?" And she was like, "Yeah, it's all right, but that's not how we do it in Brooklyn. I don't know how they do it in Tulsa, but that's not how we do it in Brooklyn." And I thought, the fuck are you talking? What? Where? I didn't even know where she picked up Tulsa from, because as a kid, nothing in that movie says we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was anywhere USA. But that she said that paid dividends for me 100 years later in that van coming from Whataburger, because I remember thinking, I was like, what do they do for kicks here? Play checkers, which is one of the Dallas Winston lines when he's picking his friends up from the church after they're hiding out after killing the Soj. And then I heard my mother go, "I don't know how they do it in Tulsa, but that's not how we do it in Brooklyn." I go, motherfucker, this is where they filmed The Outsiders. And that's what caused that epiphany. So thanks, Mom. It paid off. It did well. I ended up buying the house, asking for help. We raised money on the internet. We raised it on GoFundMe. GoFundMe liked it so much they gave me $1,000, which was crazy. People, you know, my friends kicked in, fans kicked in of the movie. Local people gave gifts in kind, which is even better than the money. Is meaning like somebody would pull up and say, "Hey man, your grass is like a little bit overgrown there," and I'm like kind of going through it like, "Yeah, I think it is." And they're like, "Hey, you need to get that cut," and I go, "Clearly." And they'll be like, "Well, we'll come by on Sunday." And I go, "I don't have any, what's that going to cost me?" And they're like, "No, we'll come after my daughter's soccer practice and cut your grass." And I'm thinking, what's the catch? And there was no catch. And then somebody would say, "Hey man, this rain is it's getting in. I can see from the street that it's going into your chimney. that thing needs to be flashed. And I'm thinking, great, another thing I got to deal with. And they're like, well, you know, after work, I'll have my boys and us, we'll come by and get that. I said, listen, I don't have any money right now to budget for that. They're like, no, brother, we were trying to help you out. And one after one, this town came and kicked it, you know, kicked me down and hooked me up and looked out for me. And it was life-changing to see that stuff. I wish everything went as smooth and as that was, but, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I attribute a lot of it to just being, like I said, being able to ask for help. I know it sounds crazy if that comes naturally to you, but for me, it was like almost the hardest thing in the world to say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I just spent most of my life fortune, which is nothing, but it's everything when you just getting by on this house. I believe that there's a play here. If you believe so too, will you help me? And people helped. And you know what? I had one poster to my name when I bought that house, and I'm touting I'm going to make a museum with what? Like, what are you going to show? Like, my head was like, dude, what did you just get yourself into? Why are you even accepting money? You were going to, I had one poster, but then sure as shit, this guy called me, guy emailed me or Facebook me and said, hey, his wife did. He says, hey, my husband has some really impressive collectibles he'd like to give you. And then, and he showed up and he had the director's chair from Francis Ford Coppola that was stolen from the set of Rumblefish. And you guys may not know, but Rumblefish and The Outsiders are both S.C. Hinton books. Yeah. Coppola did both of them back to back. And when he was downtown filming that, they were busy doing something, and a homeless guy just helped himself to Coppola's chair. Now they saw him take the chair, and Coppola got pissed because everybody kind of broke character and went to go, you know, shine for Coppola and get that chair back. And he's like, God damn it, get back in place. We're making a movie here. If he wants the chair, let him have the chair. And a couple of days later, the cops got called out to a liquor store pretty close to The Outsiders' house because the guy was drinking back there and playing on the train tracks, and they were afraid he was trying to kill himself. So my guy, is my friend now, Gary, but he was a cop here then, and he said, you know, Danny, I pulled up, I hit him with the light. I said, you grab your shit. Wait a minute, whose chair is that? And the guy was like, that chair? That ain't my chair. You want that chair? Said, yeah. It was Coppola's director's chair, sitting in all of this rubble of shit. Was this, you know, the director's chair. So he put it in the back of his cruiser and he got that guy out of there, and then the rest was history. So now I had something spectacular, Smithsonian worthy, that I could say, well, at least I got a chair and a poster. That's a start. And slowly but surely, I just started collecting. I made it my life's work. And we now have the largest collection of screen-worn wardrobe. We have the largest collection of Outsiders novels, the Outsiders novels from all over the world. It's been translated in over 33 languages, and it's been in print since 1967, which makes it very hard to find all of the copies. That book has never been out of print in 55 years. The author is still here, alive and well, living in Midtown, Tulsa. She was one of the biggest donors. Straight away, she sent me a check for $10,000, which I literally cried, and I ain't cried since Mickey died in Rocky, which is a long time before that check came in. And I could not believe how sweet she was to me. She wrote that book at 15 and a half. She failed English and got a D+ in creative writing. So if there ain't hope in that, I don't know where there's hope. And she always says, and I may, you know, I'm adding, you know, what I'm going off the top of my head, but basically she says, Danny, I don't worry about my punctuation or my spelling or the lack thereof. I just tell my story, and somebody will edit and fix that if it's, you know. And she said, I felt that way since I'm 15 and a half. I didn't, you know, and I'm the opposite. I overthink everything, you know, and if it can't be perfect, then why bother? And nothing I've ever done has been anywhere near perfection. So it becomes an excuse why not to do anything. She never had that issue. So God bless her. It talks to kids. It speaks to kids. Her work speaks to kids. I think she's got 11 novels under her belt. She doesn't want for anything. She really just wants to be left alone. We've kind of we've elevated her, but you know, she was always celebrated. But to me, she was criminally under-celebrated when I got here. And I took everything I learned about being in, you know, in the entertainment business, in which, you know, you guys may not know this, but I was never a rapper. I was always a b-boy. I was always into hip hop early when no white kids were, and especially in suburbia. I would go back every summer and just get as much knowledge and as much music and as much stuff I could get from the East Coast. And when I'd come back from summer, I was like a wizard at school. I was holding court. People were like, I was just breaking groups. Nobody knew, but I was bringing Fishbone and Oingo Boingo to New York, and I was coming back with Curtis Blow and Run DMC, and nobody. It was, you know, MTV had just come out, but it wasn't, you know, it was like I was a cultural exchange. But I tell you that to tell you that I backdoored my way into hip hop. I'm the branding guy. It was my brand. It was my name. It was my concept. It was but Everlast was always the, you know, he could rhyme at a level that nobody else could rhyme at, even for any color, but in particular for a white guy who went to school with me. I was like, holy shit. So he had already had a solo deal with Ice-T.
Did you meet Eric on the West Coast or the East Coast?
No, West Coast. We all met on the West Coast. Me and Eric went to high school together when we went. I originally went to Taft High School in Woodland Hills. I met him in Canoga, of course. Listen, there was something in the water back in those days between busing and people, anybody, if you made money in Hollywood, you'd want to get a nice house with a pool out in the valley. So we had a really eclectic bunch of you know, talent in that side of the valley. And I was also, you know, so I knew Eric. I got kicked out of many schools, Taft being one of them, and I went to Canoga for a heartbeat, and that's where I used to run into Eric the most. But I, you know, going to any hip hop club back in the days, or just any event, there was a handful of, you know, kids, white kids at the Sherman Square roller rink when they were doing hip hop shows. I was one of them. Everlast was one of them. Brett Mazer, DJ Epic was one of them from Crazy Town. But way before Crazy Town in high school, he was making beats for Belle Biv DeVoe. I mean, he was doing the Poison remixes and whatnot. So he was already popping. So we knew each other. So we were just like, you know, but I'm telling you that to tell you that what I learned in hip hop early when a lot of people didn't, if you were a talented rapper, the label would do all that for you. They would do the logos, they would do the branding, they would do the photos, I never let the label do that. I always took that on me, which was rare to even let, the label wouldn't even want you to do that. This was like 20 years before they let you do that kind of stuff. Like, I'm sure other artists had ideas and they brought them and they got them implemented, but it was very rare in hip hop where they were like, dudes just knew how to rap, but they didn't know the whole. So we made more money on t-shirts than we made with record sales, and we sold a lot of records. So that, you know what I mean? Like, that's real. Unfortunately for me, you don't sell much t-shirts when you're not touring. So what goes up must come down. That being said, I've taken everything I've learned in being a marketing, branding, and logo guy, and I've transferred it into upholding the legacy and the underselling legacy of the Outsiders, but more importantly, S.E. Hinton's work as it pertains to inspiring all types of kids, black, white, pinstripe, all shapes, sizes, colors, all economic barriers. And the story is as old as time, the haves and the have-nots, and finding the center and coming together and finding the good on both sides. You know what I mean? And so it's the life I've lived, and it's a complete 180 from what I was doing in California, and just was getting old. And so I love it here. The people here are great. It's affordable here. I live at the top of a historic hotel called the Mayo Hotel. I pay a fraction of what I pay to live like a king in LA. It costs me half here. I travel a lot. Life is good. I have no complaints. And again, it's amazing what happens. That and my sobriety, I will say, is the secret to my success. And you know, I just celebrated 18 in April, 18 years sober. And that's for a guy like me, even my mother predicted I'd be dead or in prison by 21. And she used to tell me that a lot. And so 21 was like a victory, but you know, 54, everybody lost money in the O'Connor family for betting against mommy on there. I even would have been against me. I probably would have lost money on me, you know, but all that to say, you know what, you just never know. And I back that up by saying, you know, when I got 10 years of sobriety, I was like on a fence there. Was like, where's mine? Like, what the hell? Like, I had some good highs and some good lows, started a new band. The band fell apart, worked in the clothing industry. Then we fell out, lawsuits and this and that. I got married, I got divorced. Life still lives, you know, but at 10 years of sobriety, I started to get a little, you know, like, where's mine? And I remember a buddy of mine saying, dude, just keep doing what you're doing. Yours is coming. And it finally, you know, I didn't have no idea that the Outsiders house would be mine and that would be the thing, you know. And when I even bought it, I was buying it just so that they didn't tear it down. I figured, what's it going to cost? 15 grand to ensure that this house never gets torn down. My first plan was to board it up and go home and then just try to slowly figure it out, you know. But it just started.
What was the moment that you moved out there that, like, you literally were like, okay, goodbye?
No, it's a great question too. It's a great question because I never planned to live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I didn't know anything about it. So I was coming back and forth. What I did after finding it the first time, and my mind started to go off into the weeds, I was like, oh my God, 42 grand, you know, somebody should buy that house. Like, can't believe nobody bought that house. Why isn't somebody turning that house into a museum? And I thought maybe I could, and then I go, no, stop thinking like that. And it took 5 years Nicole, for me to like really take it serious, because I just kept coming and visiting it like twice a year, doing the urban exploring thing that I was doing. You know, that original picture of the Outsider's House caused a stir on the internet for me. And I started getting calls. Originally, I got Mark Brunette, the producer, called me and wanted to turn what I was doing into a TV show. Unfortunately, we took like 3 meetings, and then they wanted me to get a real estate license and buy houses, kind of like what they did with the Brady House. But I had been doing it 8 years prior. If you Google, when you guys are done with this, Google Delta Bravo Urban Exploration Team. There's a private group. Join it if you're interested, or look at the old page. We just don't, because the algorithm, we don't do the old page. But I got dudes all over the world doing these before and after location hunting. We started that on the internet in 2006, I think. And then it was Asylum, the people who make all those American Gangster and all those gangster documentaries they were doing. Then it was Reels TV. They flew me out to New Mexico, and Hollywood Happens Here. And I do it with a LAPD detective who was former NYPD cop, who's still on LAPD now, is one of my best friends, Marco Nolan. And they loved it. A cop, a bad guy. They go all over the city looking for locations. But just like Hollywood does, they're like, we love what you do. We just want you to completely change it for television. Yes. And I'm like, well, that's your job. I have no interest in, and I really thought it was going to be a show on Vice, because the way we talk, the banter. What I found out is less about getting to those things, just like live. It's really what happens from thinking about going to those, getting up and going to those, everything in between, because we met so many remarkable people, had so many ups, downs, left, rights. You know, good things happen on those adventures, bad things can happen, you get hurt out there. But that's what kind of kept me thinking about the Outsider's House, because everybody was so enthralled with the Delta Bravo thing that they were like, how did this all come about? And I was like, dude, I was on tour and I found the Outsider's House, and I got so much play that I thought, man, I'm onto something. I'm good at predicting like trends, but I'm really good at, I mean, sometimes it's just obvious to see that you're at a tipping point. When I got that much like engagement with the first post of the Outsider's House, when engagement was so low on Facebook originally, I mean, you remember Facebook it was built for college kids to talk to each other. I only set up a Facebook account so that nobody took my name, because there's a million Danny boys. I know it's shocking to think that, but every Irish kid and perhaps Latin kid with the name Danny is Danny boy. I've had to fight many fights over that name, physically and verbally. And so I'm quick. And if there's a new platform, it's Danny boy. And I stopped putting my birth date on there because I'm too old at this point, but I was trying to lock it down. But Facebook was the catalyst for all of this stuff. And thank God, because the urban exploring got everybody so interested that I thought it all started at this little Outsider's House. Maybe there's something to this. And absolutely there was something to this. I think we're all of the age, especially in this tumultuous climate that we live in, politically, financially, all of the things, right? It's not hard to imagine why we would like to go back to these warm, fuzzy 80s, maybe 90s vibes, where it was just like, remember it was so simple back then, where we could just, go to the movie, have a popcorn, go see Stand By Me, go see Breakfast Club, go to The Outsiders, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Like, I miss all of that. And I think we all do, and we're all of the age now where we're like, we cherish those memories more now than ever. And so, but I will tell you, I assumed I was making a museum for middle-aged greasers like me and you, Dave. And I don't know if you're as old as me, but I'm throwing you in the car regardless.
I'm right there with you.
And you know what the good news is, and it was completely unexpected, that this museum, and I know you can imagine this, is really driven by 7th graders. And it's the Outsiders has the largest, it's up there with like the Rolling Stones. So we could go to the Rolling Stones, our parents could go with us to that show, your kids can come to that show with us, maybe even grandkids, and they'd all have a good time seeing the Rolling Stones. That's not happening at a House of Pain concert. It's just not. If you're coming to House of Pain show, you just got off parole, or you just got out of jail, or you're going through a divorce, or you're still using drugs or something like, and we don't do that anymore, by the way, both things, drugs or House of Pain. But I'm just saying, hip hop doesn't have the same legs that rock does, or punk rock even, but I digress and tell you that the beautiful thing about the Outsider's House is that we get the whole family tree. So yes, we get middle-aged greasers. They want to know where Dallas Winston's leather jacket is. They want to know if I have any of the knives or guns. But I hear more girls crying than you could hear at a funeral or at a wedding or at a quinceañera, because they come in, they're like, oh my, mom, mom, oh my, and they freak out. And I just, it's surreal, but you hear it enough times and you can get used to it. You're just like, I don't even see it anymore. I'm just, all right, girls, calm down. Go over here. You'll see them freak. The more they see it, the more they just lose it. And yeah, it is for me, tough guy bullshit aside, it's heartwarming because it's an educational component and experience that I didn't plan for. I was strictly interested in saving the house, that nobody tore it down, and I was interested in it as a pop culture thing because it was so relevant to me. But what I didn't realize was that there was a learning opportunity for the kids to see what this 15-and-a-half-year-old author from their town has accomplished and did, and maybe there's hope for them in that area in academically, because you coach sports, but when it comes to academics, the way we test kids is like, you don't know that if acting can't be tested on a thing like that, or creativity is not tested on that kind of grid, like A, B, C, and you just don't know. And so a lot of kids like myself feel marginalized or fall through the cracks because I got a D in every class that if I didn't get an F, because I just didn't fit in that mindset. I just didn't, that system didn't work. That's not how I learn. I don't learn from reading. I learn from doing, and I learn from seeing you do it. And so a lot of kids, when they see that she was failing out and got a D+ in creative writing, yet she still succeeded, that's important to them. Because being a New Yorker and then growing up in LA, we could throw a baseball and hit 20 famous people with one baseball. Here, they can't do that. So they love the fact that one of them, Tulsans, Okies, has risen to that thing, and it inspires them in ways that none of the stuff that we do on the coastal cities could ever inspire them. But at the end of the day, she was a little girl who persisted despite all of the things that were in her way, and she told her story, and then she told it again, and then she told it again, and they made 4 movies out of her books. And Tex was the first one. It was a Disney movie. The Outsiders came next, then Rumblefish, and then that was Then This Is Now. And my favorite obviously is The Outsiders, but I do love Rumblefish, and I collect all of it now. So unless she has something I don't know about, she has a few collectibles, she being Susie Hinton, but I have the largest collection of Susie Hinton memorabilia and collectibles known to man, woman, and child. And my dream is to make a new museum. This one would be a museum masquerading as an educational center where you could come learn how to write a script or act or camera focus pull or edit, or it'll be like an academy based on all of the works of S.E. Hinton and all the people that she's touched with that work, whether they were in the movie, working behind the scenes, et cetera, et cetera. You may not know this, but this used to be called, it's just Oklahoma. Now it's called Okie Wood. We've got Reservation Dogs, which is the biggest hit on Hulu for the last 3 seasons. We just had Tulsa King do the first season here. It was too hot for Stallone, so he wasn't built for the Oklahoma heat, it's fair play. Killing of the Flower Moons just wrapped up, a year ago here, which is the new Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio film. My buddy John Swab is on movie number 8, and he's done them all written, produced, and directed. And here, did another movie in Oklahoma City. All I'm telling you is that this place is on fire right now. So these kids, they don't have to think like it used to be 20 so years ago. If your kid was interested in what we do, we'd have to send them to one of the coasts, because it wouldn't be realistic to tell you that you could stay here in Oklahoma and have a career in the arts in that way. Today, it's the opposite. No offense. If you're still in Hollywood, that's awesome. But Hollywood doesn't do Hollywood things anymore. Right. You could live. Most of the people that I know they're living in Wyoming now, and they're flying in for whatever, or they're doing what we're doing you don't have to live in Hollywood anymore to be in that industry unless you're working as on the lot. All that to say, it's not an overreach on my end. It's what I start to see in the kids. They're more interested than ever in getting involved in these kind of fields, but there's no real way for them to do that here currently. So I feel like I could bring a lot of people in there, and bring people like you to come here and teach at some point, or even if it's a weekend class, and talk to these kids about the stuff that we do, whether it's podcasting or rhyming or acting or writing or producing. And so, yeah, that's the dream. But for now, I'll just have to, work with what I got, which is a beautiful little museum. And yeah.
I love that. Her story, S.E. Hinton, by the way, she to think at 15 years old, especially back then, that she would just go ahead and write books.
Right. She said it wasn't even her first.
I mean, that's just like, I don't know. It's a calling. It's a thing. It's like that she was born to do that, because these days, yeah, all these kids are entrepreneurs and blah, blah, blah. But back then, like, it would be so discouraging if you got a D in, creative writing, and that's what your passion was. Like, you'd probably just put it away. And I don't know. I love that. I love that about her. I love that Francis, the way he cast it too. So not only do we have a great book that's in schools that everybody's required to read, but kids love it. And then he goes and he puts that cast together before any of them are famous.
Yeah, that's Fred Roos, and Fred's his producing partner. Fred had the eye that just literally is, I mean, that cast you can put up against, like, the only thing close to it, and it's better in my thing, and I'm a fan of both, incredibly so, is Fast Times at Ridgemont High or any of the John Hughes films. But in The Outsiders, was the smallest star becomes the biggest star, which is Tom Cruise, Emilio Estevez, Ralph Macchio, Matt Dillon, Diane Lane, C. Thomas Howell. Leif Garrett was the biggest star when it came to the screen, because he was from the 70s, and he used to be all in all the Teen Beat magazines from back then. So arguably he was probably the largest, and not to forget Patrick Swayze, God rest his soul. But they all went on to such great things. And Fred Roos he was the genius in that. And then, not to be forgotten, is the librarian in Fresno, California, Miss Masikian, who saw a tipping point with her students. She said, "Danny, the boys will read anything I give. I mean, the girls will read anything I give them, but the boys won't." And I noticed that they were gravitating towards this book called The Outsiders. And before long, I couldn't keep it on the shelf. So at the end of the year, I had them all write to see if I could raise 100 letters. We were going to write a letter to Francis Ford Coppola and encourage him to read the book and perhaps turn this into a movie. And I said, Miss Masikian, with all due respect, I have to ask, why Coppola in 81 did you think that was a good choice? I said, at that point, he had done, Apocalypse Now, Godfather 1 and 2. I said, I don't know that would have been the obvious choice. And she said, Danny, I was so impressed by his keeping to the novel, staying true to the timeline of the Black Stallion, that I thought he'd be the perfect choice. And I said, and I did see that movie. I forgot it was a Coppola thing. And then we brought her out she had never been out to Tulsa before. We had dinner with S.E. Hinton. S.E. Hinton thanked her for her hand in all of this. We got her the key to the city the next day. We showed the movie at the Circle Cinema where they filmed, and it's the first sentence in the book as I stepped out from the darkness of the theater. And at the end, we had a Q&A. And as I asked the same question, even though I knew the answer, I said, Miss Masikian, will you explain why you chose Francis? And she told me what I told you. And then my buddy's hand went up in the audience. And I thought, what in the hell are you doing? And because it was already canon, it was already accepted. And he said, Miss Masikian, I don't know how to tell you this. It's been too long, but I can't let it go any longer. He said, it was such a remarkable thing that so many things had to fall into place, so much like just kismet, that just like these things, just happy accidents that kept leading to this, because at any turn, this thing could have not happened. But she said, I want you to know that the director of Black Stallion was not Francis Ford Coppola. He was the executive producer. He had nothing to do other than probably financing and putting his name on it. Had you had sent it to the original director that you thought you were sending it to, it would have been a French guy who, after that movie, didn't do much but a few commercials and then went into the obscure, of where is he now? And so the happy accident, and her jaw dropped, and the whole crowd was like, oh, because we all thought if she had got it right, we wouldn't be talking right now about this.
Yeah.
So the butterfly effect in this thing, it just keeps on going. And she couldn't believe it. And then we all kind of just laughed and was like, huh? What are the chances? And if this was a 10-hour podcast, I could tell you of how many little things went wrong and they turned into happy accidents. She didn't even send the letters to the right place. She sent it to the wrong office in New York. And his assistant grabbed it and saw a book with like 100 letters. And he goes, what the fuck? And she met him in LA and gave it to him in a handoff. And he got on another flight and had nothing to read. So he goes, well, whatever. And he starts reading it and falls in love with it. But that is a snapshot of a million little things that had to go right for us to be sitting here now talking about this. And I'm sure that could be said in about a lot of things in life, but never in my life have I seen so many happy accidents turn into one of the most beautiful stories ever told. And so, yes, there are so many things to take away. as you can imagine, it can get boring if you're just so focused on one thing that you need a break. But every time I'm bored of one aspect of it, I can fall into the work of Francis Ford Coppola or Lawrence Fishburne, who was this guy Smokey in Rumblefish, and then get in on a trip of that, or Fred Roos and all the movies he's worked on, or S.E. Hinton, all the books, or it's just so many pivots that you can, you know, in this story, that it's an incredible thing. And I never get tired of living it, collecting it, talking about it, and so on.
You know, I got to ask
Listen,
you
if
because.
Coppola didn't have it, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna go ahead. Finish what you're gonna say, Nicole. I'm gonna jump into the next part.
If Coppola didn't have it, it would have turned into. Listen, I was a huge John Hughes film fan. Loved it. But it would have turned into something a little bit more, you know, bubblegum like that. I feel like Coppola kept like the edge. You know, he brought that, kept it edgy, and we didn't have
right.
Stuff, right?
No, you're 100% right. And Dave, before you say it, because I'll forget. Originally, they bought The Outsiders with the intent to give it to, I believe, a Spanish director from Spain, and they were doing it for American Zoetrope, and they were like buying scripts to then, you know, but because the movie he did prior called One from the Heart kind of bankrupted him, it was his Waterworld, Coppola's, that he started to dig through his shit and go, hey, I need to find a quick fix and kind of like bail out water on the sinking ship. And I believe that they took The Outsiders. He was like, I'll take a shot at it. It's a payday. Let me go do it. But in doing it, he wanted to be respectful to Susie. So he's like, let's go to Tulsa to do it. Now, you know, like I know, like Warner Brothers was not happy with that idea, especially in '82 when there was no cell phones, no internet, no way to take all of that production and go, when you could do it on the back lot for very little money, to come out here to do it. So God bless them for that. And yes, you're right. If any of these little things have changed, we get a completely different experience, completely different movie, completely different cast. And I don't know that, again, I just can't imagine. It just was so many things just fell into place or happened or just was seconds and inches from disaster, and then boom, and it got saved. And I'll tell you, this movie was not a hit in the theaters. We fall in love with it on VHS and we fall in love with it on HBO if you could afford it. But this thing didn't last in the theaters long. Warner Brothers did not like it. Their notes back to him after watching the dailies was that this is Gone with the Wind for the 80s and nobody's going to love it. Matt Dillon is the breakaway star here, and edit accordingly. And if you read the book, you'll understand that Matt Dillon's character, Dallas Winston, is a cautionary tale. Johnny admires him and kind of worships him as the big brother, and Pony sees that he's a bit of trouble and tries to dissuade him from like falling in love with the idea that this guy is the saint that he is, and he's probably going to lead, you know, it's a cautionary tale at best, but in the movie you wouldn't know that because they just, you know, he's constantly in all of those scenes. So it just worked the way it worked. Coppola's father was the original famous Coppola. That's Carmine Coppola. He was the conductor and came from the old country in Italy to Detroit and became Henry Ford's favorite conductor. And he led the Henry Ford Theater. That's why Francis Ford Coppola is named Francis Ford Coppola. And his soundtrack, when you listen to the original, it's from another era. It plays like a Gone with the Wind for that beautiful soundtrack. And it's what's missing when Coppola finally, after 35 years, and his granddaughter said, why is the book so much different than the movie? And the reason why it was so much different, because Warner Brothers didn't like it. So they had to chop it down to a much quicker moving movie because it played out too slow when you keep it real, when you keep the timeline, you know, concurrent with the book. It just didn't move the same. So he cut 22 minutes away to make it a little bit more action-packed, but it destroyed it for anybody who had read the book. Per se, I wouldn't say destroyed, but it would left them going, what happened to this scene? Or where's the court scene? Or what happened to there was no resolve? So he goes back and redoes it, and he adds 22 of the missing minutes. He makes it linear to the book, but he then takes the leap of faith. Well, he takes his father's soundtrack off, and he puts in the music that he always wanted to put that they didn't have the budget to put, which is like B grade Elvis songs and just it's like it's hokey 50s and 60s. It just doesn't, it's not good. But I'll take what I get and love it. But the movie, again, the original one it's so many things had to go right. And yes, that being one of them. If anybody else got their hands on it, I'm not sitting here for sure talking about it. So.
Yeah, it's that lightning in a bottle.
Absolutely amazing. Nicole and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, that when you, as an artist, as a writer, when you basically hit a home run, you live forever. And this book, this movie, it goes on forever. You kind of have a circumstance like this in your life, whether you give yourself credit or not for it. But jump around. is such a popular song. I'm not gonna lie to you. When my baseball team takes the field, we play that song when we take the field, and the crowd gets excited. The players get excited. But Wisconsin takes it to a whole nother level. And so Nicole, I know, is not as big of a sports fan as I am.
Right.
But Nicole, the University of Wisconsin, when Wisconsin home games are going on and they play Jump Around, it's over 85,000 kids just jumping up and down, shaking the entire stadium. It is really cool. And so when you look at art and you look at, going back to, what's gone on with this book and how it's completely extended into time, your music has completely extended into time as well.
Well, that's awesome. Now, I will tell you that I met a guy. I did a radio show here. He does a travel show. His name is Mr. Greenberg. And he said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "Well, it's hard to explain." He goes, "Hurry up. we got to go on air." I'm gonna go, "Sir, I used to rap." And he's like, "Oh, what's the song?" I said, "Oh, you've never heard it." He goes, "What song?" I said, "Jump Around." He said, "What? The Jump Around?" He paused the recording. He was like, "I'm an alumni. Oh my God, I was part of the they had to hire a seismologist to come and make sure that the stadium could handle that many people jumping around." He was I was like, "Oh my God, this is meant to." He's like, "You got to come to the stadium." But apparently Everlast had already went and done it without us. But I will go someday and check that out. Yes, thank you. I didn't write that song. Everlast did. I will never take credit for writing that song. Muggs did the beat from Cypress Hill. I feel like I inspired the look and the aesthetic, but yes, it took all of those things to come together, similar to The Outsiders, to be what it was. That being said, it wasn't that long ago that my first girlfriend ever, Patricia Merkins, called me up and said, "Danny, my kids they're undefeated this season in their football here in Florida. And would you believe they come out to Jump Around and it hasn't failed them? Would you mind doing a shout out to them as we play Jump Around?" And I said, "Shit, I'm in the middle of something. When do you need it?" She goes, "Like in 1 hour." I'm like, "The game's in 1 hour?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Sure." And so I recorded it and I did the thing and I sent it. And then I never heard back. I thought that's kind of rude. So I said, "Hey, how did it go?" She goes, "We lost."
Ah.
The whole season undefeated. Then I give him a shot out. So listen, it cuts both ways. I'm a diehard Yankees fan. I used to go to a lot of Angels games, and all they did is bring out the rally monkey and play Jump Around against my team. I should be so lucky. Sometimes it takes me to a place where I want to go, and sometimes it reminds me of all the reasons why I'm not in the entertainment industry anymore. Good, bad, or indifferent, I should be so lucky. Thank you. I hope it brings your team nothing but wins. And if and I won't do the cameo unless you insist, but I'll do it for you for free. And if they lose, I don't want to know about it.
No, it truly is an iconic song. Like, it is one of those that are a classic. Yeah, it's like you hear it everywhere. My kid knows it. Everybody.
No,
they all know.
Arguably, because of the way that it became an anthem. I mean, growing up, everybody knew who Queen was before they knew who Queen was, because you would hear "We Are the Champions" or "We Will Rock You" at just everywhere. I think now the running favorites are "Shipping Up to Boston" from the Dropkick Murphys, Seven Nation Army from the White Stripes, and I do hear "Jump Around" in there as well. But there's, you get competition every 5 years. It used to be Gary Glitter and "Who Let the Dogs Out."
Oh yeah.
Those come and go, but Jump Around is still going. It is
longer than all of those. I think I hear it more than I hear anything else. Like I hear.
Yeah, but Nicole, you can appreciate this more than most. Nicole was around in those eras too. She was always. That was like a small group of people in Hollywood that were all just on fire. And talking about a fan, I was always a fan of Nicole's. We used to always run into you at all of the spots and hang out. At the clubs and the bar. 90s was like an incredible time to be alive and in Hollywood, especially if you were, working and getting it. That being said, Baywatch for you is the same thing. It's like on a good day, I'm sure it comes on, or if someone says it and you're like, fuck yeah, that's, and then another day you're like, fuck, like I just want to live like a day just without thinking about, because it's like hearing from an old lover or hearing from an old friend, good, bad, or indifferent. You're like, I was just trying to focus on this thing today, and now it's out of the blue. You've hit me over the head with that thing, and now I've got to take out all the memories and throw them on the table and sort through how I feel about them. And at least for me, so I'll be watching something, and all of a sudden it's going, and people go, "Dude, this is your thing." And I'm like, fuck, I just want to watch the Yankees play baseball today. But yeah, you know, and then to be so lucky. Do you know how many people would be like, motherfucker, are you kidding me? You were like, so I'm not complaining. I'm just reporting, but it cuts both ways, man. It's a lot of, you really have to be dead inside not to feel one way or the other. And unfortunately, like any project or any involvement in something that is a phenomenon, there's good memories and then there's bad memories. And some people can't imagine, how could any of that be bad? You guys got rich, you got notoriety, and then we didn't get rich, and then we weren't so notable, and then there's it ebbs and flows. So yes, I'm happy that it happened that way, but believe me when I tell you, and this is not competing or putting one against the other, the Outsiders house for me had the same like phenomenal like response to what I've done. I had nothing to do with it. I'm a fan of it. So it's allowed me to be a fan of something and then still do what I loved to do when I was in bands, which was to do all of this, the outside stuff, the logos, the branding, the marketing, the outreach, talking to kids. Yet I don't have the pressure of making a hit or being somewhere and to perform. My only thing is to say yes to all the requests that I get to speak to kids or groups or whatever it is, and be an ambassador for this great city, this great legacy, this great book, and this great house. And that's the true honor for me. It took like going through all of that stuff and coming out the other end. If you would have told me this as a kid, I thought you guys are smoking weed over there. I don't know what you're talking. There's no way that this is real. One, that I was a fan of hip hop. There's no way I'm ever going to be in a group. And if I was, there's no way it's going to be successful, because there was nothing like that before. Yes, there was the Beastie Boys, and there was Third Base, but there wasn't like I wouldn't have believed any of it. And so I do never take that for granted. But like I said, if you're on a winning streak and you're going 9-0, don't call me for the video there. I don't want to jinx it.
It's a love-hate thing for sure.
Yeah.
Listen, that's a hard market. 3 white guys, or 2 white guys rapping, that's a hard.
I mean, you can count on one hand the amount of like successful white hip hop groups.
Yeah.
Beastie Boys, Third Base, House of Pain, Eminem, and then there's like 50 that could take the 5th spot, but they're arguable depending on what year it is. One minute it's Yellow Wolf, next minute it's Machine Gun. It keeps fluctuating, and then they disappear and they don't have that staying power. So the 5th spot, in my mind, I'm sure the comments will correct me, but but it's time has shown us that those are the ones that are like solidified. Anything after that is going to be,
Yeah, it's just like, I think it's a hard market to dominate for a reason,
Danny, just curious, have you ever seen the movie Swingers? I'm sorry, Danny, have you ever seen the movie Swingers?
Yes.
When they dropped that reference to House of Pain, did you laugh? I mean, that line still makes me laugh every time I see it.
Yeah. How much time do you got? I'm going to give you I'll give you the elevator pitch. I saw the movie. I didn't know what to make of it at the time. And then maybe, I got to think the timing, maybe 6 years later, 7 years later, I was high as a helicopter, completely down on my luck. All the music stuff had faded away, and I was up in the Hollywood Hills, and it was probably 4 a.m. And I was at a party, just another giant house in the hills. And I was just like stumbling through, and somebody walked up to me and says, "Hey bro, do you know not where you at?" They said, "You got to leave. You don't know where you're at?" I'm like, "What do you mean I got to leave?" They're like, "You got to leave, bro. Do you not know whose house this is?" I go, whose house is this? And then they told me, and his name is blanking right now. Who's the tall Vince Vaughn?
Vince Vaughn, yeah.
They go, "This is Vince's house."
Vaughn.
I go, I don't know who cares? What do you mean? I gotta go. He's like, "Bro," and all of a sudden Vince Vaughn comes down. He's like, "What's up, bro?" He goes, "You don't remember me?" I'm like, "Who are you?" He goes, "You don't remember pulling your gun on me at fucking Viper Room?" I said, "My man, if I put my gun on you, you'd be talking to Jesus right now, not talking to me, man." And he was like, "Nah, I got in a fight with this guy, Doug White, and you stepped in and put your gun on me." And I was like, "Bro, I don't know." And not for nothing, that was a lot of times I used to pull my pistol and put it in people's, so I'm not proud of that. but it is based on a true story. I didn't know that until he told me that. He then broke bread and told me it's all good, let's move forward. And I did end up, you know, staying for another hour or so. So I did not get removed for the premises. Looking back, I'm not proud of that, but you brought it up out of the blue. I figured, why not tell you the true story? So yes, it is based on a true story. I have never seen the movie after that in it, you know, and God bless it, made them all, most of them household names. So there you have it. I may have only told that story once or twice, but I give it to you. And you know, you may think that's shocking, but Nicole would probably know a little bit more about that. Shit used to get crazy. So I used to be nice with. I used to beat a lot of fights and just, yeah. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. I only tell that if I was still up to that, I wouldn't be telling that, or I would be telling that only, and they would just be like war stories. But I am not the same person. I used to act on bad information and be emotionally immature and scared and all of those bad things. And then I would put that on you to feel better about that unknowingly. And when you work through all of that shit, you realize that that's what's behind. Fear is always the motivating factor in my life. Fear of not getting what I want in life, or fear that I'm losing what precious little things I've accumulated. And when I'm coming from fear, these things happen all the time, especially if you add drugs and alcohol. And I don't think anything good happens at 4 a.m. if you're up and out, you know, and nothing good happened at a certain, you know, late night at a certain point. So I don't live like that anymore. I don't advocate that shit anymore. It's another reason why I also just like love being where I'm at in life, is that I talk to kids, and these kids nowadays, man, I don't know, you know, people have, you know, millennials, this, that, and the third. And yeah, these kids are way more in touch with their inner emotions and feelings than we ever were. Where I'm coming from, and that is not even, I'm just saying this, even in Woodland Hills, you didn't tell another dude, I'm not feeling good today, I feel less than, I feel like, you get smacked around. You just couldn't talk like that. I didn't even have the words for that. My mother would smack me and say, what are you talking about right now? Like, you just didn't articulate feelings. And I talk to a lot of kids. I'm also, like I said, I'm in recovery. So I talk at a lot of meetings, and I meet a lot of young kids, and they're able to articulate and get it out. And that's part of the thing, is knowing that it's there, putting it out, and being honest about it, that we can then talk through it and work through whatever it is you're going through. But when I grew up, man, you just couldn't do that stuff. So it manifested, the bad side of it being inspired by like gangs and fighters and all that stuff, is that there's real consequences that go with that. Especially if you do what I did, you know.
It's funny that you say that. Like, my parents were like that too. They were from Europe. They grew up during World War II as kids. They were older, and they were like, they didn't want to hear about my feelings. They didn't want to hear about like what was bothering me. They're like, what the hell are you complaining about? Like, shut up, go live this privileged life. And yeah, I mean, no matter where you came from at that time, you were just told to just knock it off.
Yeah, it was looked at as like a weakness, you know, and that's why I never asked for help, because I didn't want to be shamed and shunned and laughed at. You know, I mean, I grew up, I mean, before rapping, there was bagging. I mean, that's all we did, was talk shit to each other. Your best friend, we would just bag all day long. Mama jokes and this joke and that joke and your clothes and bagging. We would degrade you. And the better you could degrade a motherfucker is the higher you up on the pecking. I mean, so we were never going to give you material. Like, here's material, beat me up with the shit I just told you in confidence. So we were like ironclad with that. Nobody saw anything. And that was passed down generation, even where I live, growing up in New York. If there was something, nobody seen nothing. We live by that. And that's just not talking. I mean, my mother, if I got her on the phone now, she would still tell me that's, yeah, of course I raised you that way. We didn't stick our nose where it didn't belong. We minded our own business. We kept our mouth shut if we saw something. That was like old school street code, but that is not applicable in today's world. It doesn't work. And so, you know, as cool as it sounds, and as much as I bought into that as a kid, and it maybe got me through some of those hard times and some of those situations, looking back, it is not cool. But yeah, no. Yeah. So yes, there's your swinger story.
You know what's so funny is, like, Vince Vaughn comes out of this smelling like a rose, when we know he got himself into that position, you know, in a situation. Like, we know, like, this is not all it's not this all Danny.
No, but these things were an every night occurrence in Hollywood, and any given night there was always a fight, there was always a thing, there was always somebody getting it was what it was, and it is what it is. And like I said, you know, it all boils down to where you're at now, mentally, spiritually, physically. I feel like I'm the best version of me that I have ever been, and I'm good with that. Again, when I told you earlier on when we first started talking about, you know, the internet and that, to me, wealth has very little to do with money, and money is important. You have to pay your bills and you have to be secure, but you know, free is very important. And I know some people are so rich that they have no time for anything but continuing to feed the machine that keeps them rich. I don't ever want to be that rich. Like, I wake up when I want to, I go where I want to go, I can be where I want to be. So I'm rich in that way. The friendships that I have a small circle, but the people that I surround myself with are people that I enjoy their company. They enjoy mine. They're working on it, whether it's the physical part of it, working out and eating, dieting right. I don't do that as good as I should. So when I surround myself, so the richness comes from a handful of things that makes you. And with that state of mind, I am getting, oh, sorry. Today is the anniversary since I started the house. I was like, why is I'm getting news calls? I'm thinking of the fucking museum.
Congratulations.
No, I was like, is the museum burning down? Because usually when they call me out of the blue, I was 2 different. I'm like, shit. Today is the anniversary since I opened the museum. I forgot. I seen it on the internet.
How many? How many years?
I think it's 5. I think it's 5, but I got to look. Wow. I don't want to. I don't. Anyway, rich is a state of mind, and I swear, I always tell people I'm one of the richest guys I know because of that. Because I've recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, which is drug addiction and alcoholism. I don't get in that kind of trouble anymore. I do what I love for a living. If I never made a penny at the Outsiders House Museum, I'm already overpaid. Just for reconnecting and talking to you guys, to people I meet here are happy that I'm here. It used to be people were not so happy when I'd come to their parties or things. Some were and some weren't. Where I go now, I'm a free man. I don't have to look over my shoulder. I don't have to worry about going from one place to another. So it's the best life I've ever known. And it's because of, you know, my passion for this thing and showing up every day and asking for help. So if I leave you with nothing, even if it's for just the person out there, is like, I don't care how old you are or what you've been through, that there's nothing wrong with that asking for help. And that's what I tell the kids. And usually they come up after and they tell me their story, or I've had girls come up crying and say, my mother's in prison now and I had nobody to talk to. And it's like, it hits you like you're like, out of all, that's that, you know, you get some. So yeah, I have a really good life, and it's not bragging. I'm just, you know, I'm happy to be here still, because otherwise this call you would see bars in front of the.
Yeah, you're doing great. You're doing great.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's what makes you so interesting and so cool and so good.
I appreciate it. Well, Nicole, you got to come out, both of you guys, but Nicole, you got to come out. I want to show you the whole town. I want to show you the museum. I want to show you the plans for the other ones. I think we're going to do even a Rumblefish turns 40 in, I believe, October. So I'm probably going to do a Rumble. I have a massive Rumblefish collection as well. So I think I'm going to do a pop-up gallery here with all of the photos and the wardrobe that I have.
Yeah, I would love to check it out.
Yeah, anytime. And Dave, the same for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it fascinates me because I want to leave so bad. Like, it's not that I don't love it here. I do. I just know that I'm spending way too much money where I could be living just like a happy life. It's not like I just I need to explore other states. And
I get it. Listen, it's all the rage. I assure you that, you know, there's nothing better than living in a place that you love and then it's affordable. You don't have to constantly, like, I felt like I was treading water constantly in LA. It was just, no matter how much I made, it would just never fill the hold of that sinking boat. I was constantly bailing buckets and my life didn't go, it never was going up. It was just kind of sitting there and hoping it didn't go down. So.
It's tough. Yeah, California get you. We'll get you. You guys figured out
all
that.
the coastal city. Yeah,
I just don't know if I could survive without the ocean. Is my only thing. It's what keeps me here. Honestly,
if you've seen the lakes here, you'd be like, dude, it's like there's boats bigger than the equal sizes out in the ocean. That you'd be surprised. Come see it. If you're not scared of flying in small planes, we'll take you up and I'll show you from the air. I'll show you from the land. I'll take you on the water. You'll be like, oh shit. You'll never look at that the same, because I felt the same way. And with all honesty and Baywatch aside, how many times are you at the beach every week? Like, it's just a mental thing.
No, we're there.
Yeah. All right. I'll give you that.
I do go.
Well, lake life is real too.
What is?
Lake life is real. I'm going to send you a photo of the fish I caught in this lake, and I don't even go fishing. I caught this paddlefish. It was 120 pound. It looked like a shark.
Cow.
You won't even want to go in that water after you see what I caught out of there. So I'm not going in it after I caught that thing. But anyway, I got to wrap it up. I would love to stay and chat. I'm sure we're done. We went long over, and I just want to make sure I can call these.
You got it. You got a busy day.
Calls. Yes. Dave, great talking to you. Nicole, always a pleasure. Thank you for asking me. It's always an honor. And I've told her before, but I started off a fan. I'll always be a fan. And you were always very nice to us. You were always very cool with us. I feel blessed to have been around all of you guys in the 90s. You were everybody who was already famous and on point. Were always very generous to us. And I can throw out a million names, but you were a part of all of that. And I'll always remember how sweet you were, and you continue to be. And
same, honestly, the same, because we all have our insecurities, right? So to be friendly with cool guys like you was always
appreciate
an honor.
You.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Well, thank you,
and Dave. Go team, whatever your team.
Go team. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Take care. Great.
And I'll wait for it to upload. All right.
You got it. Take care.
Log off.
Okay.
You got it.
Stay gold.
It's exactly stay gold. That was cool. That was neat. Great storyteller. And again, when you talk about, the outsiders has become the fabric of so many people's childhood. I mean, there's still friends of mine who I saw the movie with, Nicole, who you sit there and you go, we throw lines at each other from the movie over and over again, which is hysterical. That we were teenagers, young teenagers when we saw that movie, and the same deal where he owns the house. I don't know. I found it fascinating that he found his passion that way.
He put like his last dollars on the line for it. You believe in the project, and it's gonna make you hustle that much harder because you've got everything riding on it. I just love those stories because listen, when you've got tons of money and you invest in something and it's great, okay, cool. But when you put everything on the line like that, I just, I love stories like that. I got chills a couple times. So.
Me too. That was cool. Nicole, we're I know we ran a little bit long, so I'm going to ask you one question from the Daily Mailbag. Okay. And this one came from Christy Taylor. Okay. Again, if you want to write in the Daily Mailbag, it's easy. You can ask Nicole questions. Just go to Perfectly Twisted Pod right there and you can see it. And ask Nicole your questions. Christy, you're going to get the one question today. What affordable and comfy clothing lines, brands are your go-to items?
Oh, Christy, I don't know if you're going to like this answer, but I am all about thrift shopping. Look at me right now. I've got my
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So for those who are not watching, I have Jim Morrison t-shirt on that I found at a thrift store. Big, oversized, soft, been washed a million times. Mine for like $5. I really kind of like lived in clothes, and so I do a lot of like thrift shopping like that. But new stuff is like, let's be honest, it's really not that comfortable. And if it is, it's a t-shirt that costs like $100. So I do like Cotton On. It's a brand that I buy a lot of my daughter's stuff. She gets a lot of cool graphic t-shirts from them. They do a good combination of comfy, cool, and affordable. And they have a women's clothing line as well, clothing store. But really, gosh, for me, it's either like I'm dressed up and I'm uncomfortable or I'm in like, my thrift store finds and my sweats, Urban Outfitters. I like Urban Outfitters, to be honest. But again, it can get pricey depending on your budget. I think that new comfy clothing is always really pricey for some reason, and I hate that. So.
Well, you answered the question. Might not have been the answer she wanted, but you were at least honest and said exactly how you do it. So, Christy, appreciate the of course the letter, the email. Again, you can sit there and you can ask Nicole questions right there in the Daily Mailbag. Just go to the website, and we're happy to answer them on there. But I always think it's pretty cool they get to communicate with you, Nicole.
People, don't forget to follow me on Amazon, because I guess I'm going to do there's Amazon live videos that I can start doing. I have to check back in there. So that'll be fun. I've never done any live videos. I haven't even done them on social media. So if you haven't already, go to my Facebook page. and I have a link to the Amazon, and we can talk about products and clothes, Christy, stuff like that on there, and then the links will all be there where you can purchase them. So I don't know, it seems like fun. It seems like such a people who love shopping. It seems like such a good thing.
Perfect. Good
Yeah.
deal. All right, so we have some big shows coming up in the next few weeks. We're really excited about, and so we aren't going to basically spill the beans on who's coming up, but we are very excited about some of the people that are scheduled to join us. And man, it's been a blast. Always having a good time.
Yeah, so good. Everybody's got such a good story, right? Like I love all the different come ups and hardships, and so fun to get to reconnect with so many people. I love it.
Absolutely. So real simple. All you have to do is you follow us again. You right, Nicole. You want everyone to subscribe, right? Leave a comment, ratings, everything else that you want. And Nicole says it right off the bat. I don't care what rating you give, but just give us some feedback.
Yeah, I know. I just got a rating that my voice sounds like nails on a chalkboard, but he put it in my personal.
I disagree. Yeah, I disagree on that one.
He put it in my personal inbox, so I don't know. I had to laugh. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm sure my kids agree with you. So that's it. Yes. No. I want to hear it. I want to hear all of it. So.
Good deal. We'll be back next week.
See you next week. Yeah. Have a good week.
You too.
Bye.